Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of American Grit with me, Tim Jensen. I have a very special guest today. We're going to talk about some great content that we believe is something very important for all of you to be listening to and to understand, to know, to practice, and to put into your daily lives. So join me today with my guest, Traver Boehm.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you.
So you're an esteemed author,
Yes,
a podcaster, a TEDxer, and you're leader of the Uncivilized men's movement.
I am.
Men are in crisis.
Yeah, man.
Explain, please. Tell me what it is.
I think if you just ask any guy who around you is thriving or who around you is struggling, I think this is a really important thing for us as men specifically. I'm going to speak to men and speak about men, even though I know you have a mixed audience. If you ask most women, they know men are struggling as they live with us or they live with the ramifications of us. I think that's another important point. Men are we're in this crossroads, Tim, of we're not really sure what to do with ourselves and we're not really sure how to be. We have a call forward to step into this different iteration of masculinity, of us as men, right? The old ways are no longer working. We're no longer able to ignore the statistics, the results of the old paradigm of living. But yet we haven't fully realized what's the new model of men? What's the new iteration? What's the new idea? What is the new permission for us? That's really where I think we're struggling the most, right? We have this, I call it the 1950s Marlboro paradigm, which was a lot of our parents, right? I'm in my 40s. It was a lot of our dads, our grandfathers, maybe a lot of men listening, which was, I'm going to live my life from here up and from the waist down. This area, fuck this area. This is terrifying. Feelings, not my thing. Actually, let's shame feelings. Let's put feelings down. Let's ignore feelings. Let's suppress feelings. So that iteration doesn't work anymore. We watched our dads struggle. We watched our grandparents struggle. We watch men struggle every day with this. But then this pendulum swung over to the other side societally. And there was this idea of forget up from here up and forget from here down. Live entirely in your feelings. Become this nice, soft, sensitive, new age, safe guy. And some guys tried that, and they fell flat on their faces too. So we've got a crossroads where that doesn't work anymore, and the new idea quite hasn't taken on, or it wasn't really built for us. It was primarily built out of the feminist movement or created by women or created by people who were afraid of men. So I say we have a whole generation, my generation, maybe a little bit younger, that were raised by predominantly, right, women who hated men or women who were afraid of men. And now the asterisk to that is there was some pretty damn good reason for that. It wasn't just like, I don't know, I just don't like men, right? We are abusive, we are assaultive, we murder, we kill, we rape, we do all of these terrible things, mostly to our women, a lot of times to each other. And so we had this societal switch that went all masculinity bad, men toxic, anything male bad. So let's take that off the table and say everything feminine, everything soft, everything lovely is safe. But we didn't incorporate who we actually are. Right? You don't get to throw the baby out with the bathwater here.
Sure.
We tried.
Yeah, we call that ditch to ditch, right?
Say it again.
We call that ditch to ditch or oversteering.
Right.
And I think there's something important to pick out of that right there. This is a generational conversation, right? We've got I'm 44 years old, right? I'm part of that Gen X community or generation, and we know the Gen Xers. They're the latchkeys. They're the forgotten generation. Again, we were forgotten, overlooked in this conversation of masculinity. Right, because it did skip the Gen Xers, right? It went from the boomers of that 50s, remnants of that 50s culture, right? The Stewart family, right? Yeah. All the way to the millennial, right? Where it's, hey, we're the society predominantly raised by females. We want you to really think about these things, and that's fine, right? But we've missed that middle ground, right? And I think there's an opportunity Again, the Gen Xers will come and save the day,
Yeah.
right? Because we're sane and we have a little bit of understanding of the left and the rights, right? Of the new and the old, and say, you know what? There's parts of both that we can take and we can make a solution here that one is representative of what we want our community to really be.
Yeah.
The violence, right? That really gave women something to fear.
Sure.
Right. And that is a true statement.
True.
Right. And it continues to be a true statement today.
True.
I think some of the stats are, 1 in 5 women today are raped. Right. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple women in the room here.
Right.
Statistically, one of them may have been raped.
And if you incorporate the under-reporting of it, that number goes way up.
Right.
So it's a real problem. And that, again, that's just rape. We're not talking about sexual assault. We're not talking about emotional abuse. We're not talking about the full spectrum of abuse that we'll say, predominantly women experience, but so many men have also experienced from other men and sometimes from women, but predominantly from other men. So we have this massive traumatized society. And there's permission, if I can speak clearly or openly, women have permission to talk about their trauma with each other, with social services. It's okay. There's space for it. If we talk about our trauma, man, guys are going to slam it shut, or culturally we're not appreciating it. It's just like, hey, man up. That happened to you. I'm sorry. Get over it. But that's not how trauma works.
No.
So we have this whole group of men who had abusive fathers, abusive neighbors, abusive boys, abusive other people in their lives, abusive mothers, abusive teachers. Like the numbers that are coming out now are atrocious, right? 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when I was leading workshops, we may get one guy at the end of a 30-person event would pull me aside and be like, you know what? I was sexually abused as a child. Yeah. One guy. And it was quiet, and it was like, hey, I got something to tell you. 3 weeks ago, I had like 5 out of 30. Raised their hands in the middle of a workshop. Happened to me, happened to me, happened to me, happened to me. And that's just sexual assault. We're not talking about, I watched my dad beat the shit out of my mom, right? And I couldn't do anything about it. My dad beat the shit out of me. My stepdad beat the shit out of me. My neighbor raped me. Whatever it is that happened, we are now at a point where that trauma has built up and built up and built up to a point where all of the ways that it's coming out sideways have gotten notice. Right? Men's suicide rates have gotten notice. Addiction rates have gotten notice. Like, we get it, but we're still focusing on the branch of the problem and not the root of the problem, which is these guys can't sit across from somebody and say, brother, this thing happened to me, without fear of ridicule, of shame, of losing his job, of losing his family, of losing his self-esteem. That's the ache, Tim, in men. That's the pain in men. And again, I'll say this for everybody listening, what we suppress comes out sideways.
100%.
So,
and I think there's a point of being vulnerable, right? That most men, society has taught us not, as a man, not to be vulnerable, right? Sure. We see all these action movies, all these points of influence, right? Through the celebrities that we watch on television and the movies, through the music that we listen to, through the politicians and the influencers, that continue to lord over society. At every point of touch, your men are like, you're not allowed to be that way.
Right.
You can't talk that way. You can't express these emotions, right? And I come from a family, in talking about vulnerability, like I was taught to suppress all my feelings.
For sure.
Right? Because I watched my grandfather do it, that survived World War II. I watched my father do it, right? And up until most recently, I participated in that, right? Sure. Until I got on my own spiritual path of trying to say, let's live outside my own box, right?
Tim, the word vulnerability also, it fucks with us men, right? I have a jiu-jitsu background. I'm not interested in vulnerability. Vulnerability means someone's going to choke me. What I'm interested, though, in is truth. Like raw, honest truth. That's what I want to get men to open up to the idea of. Because men with vulnerability, like, I'm still not okay with that. But if I say, hey, brother, just be honest with me. What are you going through? First guys are going to be like, nothing, I'm fine. Like, okay, what else are you besides fine? That's when we get to drop down into here. They go, actually, you know what? I'm not a fucking country mile from okay. And then we get to have a real conversation. Then we get to actually work with things that need to be addressed, right? You run a company. Imagine if you sat in every meeting, you're like, what are my numbers? And they're like, they're fine. Like, but no, I need to actually know what the actual numbers are. Oh, they're not good. Or they maybe, this one's great, that one's not. So I think men specifically, and we'll say this to women as well, but women who love men or women who are with men, we need truth. We just need truth right now. The stats don't fucking lie, right? Addiction rates don't lie. Suicide rates don't lie. 8 out of 10 suicides are male. 8 out of 10 of those come after a breakup or a divorce. What does that tell you? That guy's heartbroken. That's why he's doing it. How much do we address male grief in this culture? How much do we address male heartbreak? We don't. What's the prescription if you get divorced or broken up with today? What's the classic civilized male prescription? Let's take you drunk, get you drunk, and get you laid. How well does that work? I mean, we've all tried it, right? I've tried it. Doesn't work. A day later, I feel like even more shit, and I actually want to sit down with my friends and go, I'm heartbroken. I'm actually heartbroken. So we as a culture, as a society, if we want to solve these problems, which I do believe a number of us do, we have to make space for grief. We have to make space for pain. We have to make space for openness. We have to make space for joy and laughter and all the other things as well. But man, we are sitting on like a river or a chasm of grief in the male culture.
Yeah. And, I often think about my childhood growing up, right? And I look at statistics, and my wife has got me into watching all these murder mysteries, and this, that, and the other. But the patterns I'm seeing, right? Yeah. When you look back to the John Wayne Gacy's, to the Ted Bundys, to the list is long, right? And then you start looking at the divorce statistics in the United States, right? While declining, right, improving those numbers, it's still 45%. Right? This is 2021, 45% divorce rate in the United States. That's leaving these homes broken, right? To where 9 times out of 10, the judicial system in this country penalizes the male to where they no longer get to have as much access to their children as they should. Right? And then, that leaves a couple things. One, leaves that male and that father destroyed.
For sure.
Right? Because I want to believe that there are more great fathers than there are bad fathers.
I do believe that, yeah.
And then it leaves the child to be raised in a very feminine environment with no positive male role model. And if there is, it's usually another gentleman that comes into the situation that is imposing some garbage onto that family. I want to believe that that's the minority, but I don't know. Right? I'm just going off of my experiences, and that adds more to the problem, right? To where these males are now growing up with all that shit. In a box, like a powder keg, ready to blow, right? And the next thing you know, they're chewing on a human femur, right? I mean, that's the extreme, but but I mean but that is the seriousness of this situation, right? Is that we have a serious problem, a cultural problem,
for sure,
right? That we need to address, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on like the nuclear family and those. With the father and the young male that's growing up in that environment.
For sure. Being a man, to me, is a job. Like, if we think of it, we can think of it like a job. There are requirements. There are skills that are necessary. There are responsibilities that come with that job. Now, if I take any guy and put him in a position, a business position, and I don't tell him what the job is, and I don't train him, I don't tell him what his responsibilities are, how well is that guy going to do? He's not. He's going to fall apart. It makes complete sense that someone in that position would need that training. So now we take a young boy and we say, hey, by the way, we don't tell him any of this. You're going to get a job in about 10 years. It's going to have requirements. It's going to have opportunities. It's going to have privileges. It's going to have responsibilities. But by the way, I'm not going to tell you anything about it. And there's going to be a ton of pressure on you from society, from other men, from women. You're going to have hormones. You're going to have all of these racing ideas in your head. By the way, I'm not going to tell you shit about this. Good luck. Now, at 21, or actually probably a lot younger, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of alcohol. I'm going to give you a whole bunch of porn. I'm going to give you all these ways to numb out, to excite yourself, to distract yourself. Again, how do we think these guys are going to do? We see how they do, right? They don't do well. There's something about masculinity too. I was sharing with some of your folks at dinner last night. It's transferred. It's literally transferred by osmosis. Right? If you read Iron John, he talks a lot about this. That me being in the house with a healthy male, that's it. Just being in the same space. Some of that job title, some of those requirements, some of the understanding of it just gets transferred back and forth. So if that's missing, if that's absent, what do you think happens? Literally, these young men are lost. They're lost, and they're lost at a time when their bodies are going from 13, 14 to 15, 16, 17, when they're suddenly like, holy shit, I got 40 pounds of muscle and a fucking hard-on. Now what do I do? And there's no guidance. So what do you think they do? We all know we know what we did. We drink it, we smoke it, we jerk it, we fight it, we rage against it. It builds up all of this anger, right? So we can look at a number of different pieces of a fatherless home. One, you're probably more socioeconomically challenged. One, that young man's lonely. But two, he's missing an initiation. Yeah. You get this? Yeah. He's missing literally going from this stage of I'm a boy to now here I am as a man. And that can only be done by a man. And it can really only be done by another initiated man. So you bring in some other guy, and I'm not picking on stepfathers in any regard. They're amazing stepfathers. But they're also, if that young man doesn't have a relationship with that man, how is he going to be ushered into the next phase of his life? He's not. So he's going to be 19, 20, 30, 40, 50 in our bodies, but with a young man or a boy's software, a boy's programming. And that, my friend, is dangerous as fuck. Yeah. It's dangerous to him. It's dangerous to everybody around him. It's dangerous to women around him. Why? Because he's got a boy's mentality. He doesn't understand responsibility yet. He doesn't understand the power of his sexuality. He doesn't understand that he's bigger, stronger, faster, more aggressive than everyone on the planet, or most people on the planet. So he doesn't know how to make someone feel safe, especially a woman, because he's not safe himself. And that is a tragedy on statistical levels, but more so just on a cultural level. You have an entire population of women who don't trust men. For good reason, because those men aren't trustworthy. Why aren't they trustworthy? No one's taught them how to be men. Right? And this is the circular conundrum that society, they're like, oh man, I don't know, let's just call it toxic masculinity and hope it fucking fixes itself. But it doesn't.
Right. Just causes more pain, more grief.
Causes more pain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can relate to your points there. I recall my time coming back from Iraq in 2005. I come back to a household. Right, my son was born when I was away, and I was really gone for a year. Right, and I came back to a working household, came back to a child, came back to a woman that I have not really had a relationship with over a long period of time. Both physically, communicationally, like all these things, and I come back and I'm like, what am I fucking supposed to do? I don't know how to be a dad, right? I don't know how to find myself in this working household that has a pattern and all these things that are happening into it. Now I got to find my place in it, right? All that was foreign to me, right? And next thing I know, I'm having suicidal ideations. Right. My marriage dissolves. Mm-hmm. I lose everything, and I'm gone. Right? That was my story.
Yeah.
And
it's not an uncommon story, is it?
No,
right?
No.
You're the guy. You're the only guy that happened to, right? It's not the case. It happens over and over and over. And you made a really good point that I came back and I didn't know what to do. How do we learn what to do as men? We learn by modeling. Mm-hmm. We learn by watching, right? The old way in whatever business it was I came on as an intern or a scribe or something, and for years I just watched. Yeah. I just learned from underneath you. But now we take a guy and we put him in any situation. We're like, hey, figure this out. Oh, by the way, your trauma, all the shit that's happened to you in your life, little t trauma, big T trauma, doesn't matter. Ignore that. Just be a man and push through that. Oh, all of these distractions that can make you not feel that trauma, yeah, that's a real man. You're a real man if you engage in those, by the way. So it is just like, let's take some gasoline and pour it on the powder keg and then throw matches at it and be like, holy shit, I can't believe that it caught fire.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a fascinating subject, and I think there's a lot of work to do, and I think these conversations are part of that work, and in really getting this to be like dinner table conversation
for sure,
right? Finding ways to build it up, and there's other a part of this cultural issue, right? Let's be frank and honest, right? Like good times create soft men. Mm-hmm. Hard times create hard men, mm-hmm. right? We've had a pretty good last, I don't know, 3 decades, mm-hmm. right? 2 of those decades had combat involved in it, but that combat didn't spill into the overall population. Like most of the country didn't even know that we were in war for 20 years because it didn't affect them. It wasn't like Vietnam was being broadcast on television every single day, right? So how we have to think about that as well. Like in these soft periods, how do we create these moments where like we can continue to sharpen men, right? And that's savagery, right? Because at the end of the day, like we may be the hunters, right? And there's not much to hunt anymore, right? Because everything is provided, but we still have to keep our blade sharp, right? And what are those methods to doing that? And I think you have a great recipe, right? In the work that you're doing, and which leads me into the consciousness.
Sure.
Like let's talk a little bit about consciousness and why is it important to be self-aware? Why is it important to be inside your own head, and decompress and reflect on everything that you're seeing, you're doing, that's hitting you, right? Because you're hit with things. What is it? I just read a statistic recently. It was something like you get hit with 1 million points of marketing on a daily basis.
Holy shit!
Right? Just of all the things you're looking at, right? There's probably 100,000 pieces of marketing inside of this room that we're sitting in, right? And you just don't know it, but it's hitting you, right? And your subconscious is picking it up. Why is being inside your consciousness important as a man?
I'd say specifically as a man, it's important because one, we are reactive to it as opposed to responsive to it. If you don't know what's happening, if you don't know why you tick and how you tick, you will react. You will constantly see something, make an unconscious decision to act towards it and against it. But we as men, I believe, at our root, at our core, are contemplative. Right? We're thinkers. We need the time and space to actually go sit in the fucking woods, to sit there and be like, what do I want to do with my life? What do I want to build? How do I want to serve? Why am I the way that I am? What has influenced me and what is my opportunity to influence? That all comes down to self-awareness, not narcissism, right? But self-awareness. I need to know how I tick and why I tick that way. I need to. Why? Because I want to be in relationship with everything and everybody. And I don't have a choice about that. I'm in relationship to everything and everybody. So once I get to a point where I say, I don't know why I just did that. That to me sparks the question. That's where the curiosity comes in. Why is it that every time I got a credit card bill 10 years ago, I needed to jerk off? Am I totally aroused by Visa? No.
That's a weird fetish, brother.
No, I have an anxiety issue. I have some financial challenges. I have a relationship to money that needs to get shifted. But if I didn't know that, here I would be 30 years later like, here's my credit card. I don't know what's happening to me. Why is it that if my partner walks in the room a certain way, I get triggered? If she asks me one question, I get upset. If she asks me the same question, just in a different way, I relax. Why is that? So I think for men specifically, we need to give you all and give us permission just to be curious, right? And it happens, Tim, I see this happen all the time when the distractions go away, right? We take men out for 4 or 5 days and say, hey, no cell phone. So just leave your cell phone in your car. Kids are fine. Everybody's fine. And what happens after 24, 48 hours? They stop chasing whatever whatever the swipe, whatever the thing was. And they start to actually feel into their bodies. And they then walk around with a different sensation, let's call it that, of awareness, which is this level of fullness, which is this level of vibrancy, which is this level, here's the word, of aliveness that social media, alcohol, drugs, sex, whatever we've been sold will give you that feeling of aliveness that doesn't, so we keep chasing it.
Yeah.
We actually get the feeling of aliveness just from dropping into our bodies. Just from like, this is who I am as a man.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's vital. If you don't do that, then you'll chase for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And chase and chase and chase and chase. And how many guys do we know who have hit 7 figures, 8 figures, celebrities that were miserable, that were drug addicted, that ended up taking their own lives because they had no relationship with what was going on in here.
Yeah.
So consciousness to me is simply your relationship to the present moment. And for a lot of guys here, they're like, that's some weird hippie shit. No, it's not. Because you are in relationship to the present moment every single moment of the day. You are either checked out and watching a movie in your head, something of the past, a fear of the future, or you are actually enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's like think about eating a meal, and at the end of it, you're like, I have no recollection of eating that. I don't know what it tasted like. I don't know if I liked it. I don't know if I hated it. That's most men's experience of every day.
Yeah.
But with awareness, with practices, with some meditation, with some journaling, with just one breath, you're like, wait a minute, you know what? I feel.
Right.
This feels pretty good. I like this.
It is a strange feeling.
It is feeling itself is a strange feeling.
Yeah, man. Like, getting in tune and comfortable with your own uncomfortableness is quite the challenge.
Yeah.
And I think there's something there that I want to pick at a little bit.
Sure.
I thought is interesting, and I can relate to it. And I'm curious about it. Is react versus respond, right? We generally, as men, right, react to things when we should be, to your point, sitting back and responding, right? Using what makes us unique and our ability to use our cognitive abilities, which you talk at length about in your TED Talks and your other speaking engagements. But you're taking that moment to process, right, and to truly understand it, and then you're responding with thought, right? Rather than reacting with just anger or emotion, right? So. It's a weird dichotomy, right? Where we don't want to be emotional, but when we react, it's pure emotion.
Pure emotion.
Right? So it's like, how do we pull back from that? And how do we get into that position to where I can temper my ego, right? And say, hey, let me sit on that for a little bit. I'm gonna process this, right? And then I'm gonna come back with a little bit of a thoughtful answer or a thoughtful response, right? That's an incredible place to be at,
sure,
right?
Sure.
And it's been like for me and my practices, that's been an incredibly difficult challenge for me,
sure.
Right? Because I'm an emotional being.
It's okay. You can say it here. Yeah, it's okay, man. Yeah, I'd hug you if I could.
No, but and it's easy for me to react.
Sure.
Right? Because I can do that very easily.
Sure.
And I don't. And previously, it's been. I didn't care about how people receive that. That has been my fatal flaw. To where now I'm reflecting on these things. I'm like, man, maybe it is more listening, less talking, Tim.
Right. Listening and then feeling.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if you guys have this in your company, but I have a 24-hour email rule that if I get a shitty email from someone in the public, I'm not responding for 24 hours. I may write it in my head, like they're like, you can go fuck yourself these 17 beautiful ways, but it doesn't get sent out for 24 hours. And so I find a practice of contemplation or a practice of meditation, even better, is literally like giving someone a remote control for life. And when something happens, imagine someone bumps into you in the supermarket. All of a sudden, you now have that remote control. And you get to hit pause and go, okay, wait a minute. Seems like it might have been an accident. Didn't see me. Has nothing to do with my ego about how important I am or how cool I am in the world. I think they might have just accidentally bumped into me. Okay, I'm going to hit play. Hey, sorry about that.
Yeah.
As opposed to there's no remote control. How dare this person not realize that do they not know who the hell I am?
Right.
Have they not read my books? Do they not know my TED Talks? Do they not know how important I think I am when I look in the mirror in the morning? Do they not know how awesome I am? Fuck them.
Right.
That's how so many guys are walking around in life because they don't have a practice. Right? We are practical beings. I didn't get strong just by thinking about weightlifting. I have to get up in the fucking morning and go deadlift. Same with the practice of patience. Yeah. Same with the practice of responsiveness. And you brought up the ego. The ego is a beautiful thing. It just needs to be tempered by feeling. It needs to be tempered by our hearts. Otherwise, it runs out of control. Yeah. But I'm not a fan of kill your ego, get rid of your ego. right? I imagine you guys as a company want to grow. There's some egoic push behind that. Hey, we want to be the best. Right? That's okay to me. I want my company to be the best too. I want my movement to outshine all the other movements.
Yeah.
But I don't want to crush everybody. I go, hey, there's groups that work for these guys. There's groups that work for these guys. I actually want us all to rise together.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it was pure ego, again, like, how dare they not realize that I'm like the second coming without hair. But with a relationship with my ego, that it's tempered by my heart, which is a word men don't use a lot, I'm actually a much different, much more effective, much more relatable being.
Yeah, it goes to just living in the present.
For sure.
That's it, right? I think love and ego are connected for sure, right? I think it's in my personal opinion, and we'll talk a little bit in the next part, but ego is your connection to spirit, right? In my beliefs, right? And if you are comfortable with exposing your spirit and exposing your love to people, like, great things fucking happen to you.
Yeah.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
If you go out there with a positive attitude, the great things that fucking happen to you.
Yeah.
And in on the flip side of that, you walk around with a shitty attitude and a shitty look on your face, people treat you like a shitty person.
Shocking, huh?
Right? Kind of crazy. But it's interesting. And and I think the part that I enjoy is that thought, right? The cognitive aspect of it all, right? Because as human beings, we are throughout time, right? Going back to the Homo sapiens, the early Homo erectus, right? That were like figuring out how to start a fire, right, or to make a wheel, right? What were they doing that? They were doing all these things to improve their current situation. Mm-hmm. So humans are designed to improve their surroundings. Mm-hmm. That is what we're here to do. Right. And to do that, you have to tap into that creativity and that curiosity.
Yeah.
Right. And to get on that path, it is my belief that you have to become one with yourself before you can even attain those creative. It's almost like Maslow knew what the fuck he was talking about.
For sure.
So, I think it's a very interesting relationship of love and ego and self.
Yeah.
And I challenge everybody that's listening to try it. Put some honest effort into it, right? And see what the results come out of that. And I think you're a subject matter expert that can talk about mind, body, and spirit, and some of the practices that you do through self-meditation, yoga,
sure.
Some other cognitive exercises that really bring yourself into mind and that higher thinking of, hey, I want to reach self-actualization. I want to be my best self on every day. How do I get there?
Yeah. You have to go back to the beginning first, right? We are reactive a lot of times because of unconscious trauma, because of things that have happened to us that this was a huge realization in my life, and it didn't hit till I was 40 when I realized, shit that happened in my past is still informing how I exist today. The day before having that realization, I would have looked you right in the eye and been like, no, it doesn't. Right. That's complete hippie crap. I remember how dumb I felt when I was like, oh, wow, shit.
Right. I got a lot of apologizing to do.
I got to make some phone calls. So first and foremost, what happened to you? I was explaining last night at dinner that it's a lot like the Tetris pieces. And if you think of the game Tetris or Jenga, right? We've all played Jenga. And you take a piece out of the bottom, you put it on top. Now the top 6 inches of the Jenga board may be complete, it may be full, there may be no holes in that. But if the bottom has pieces missing, that foundation is rocky. Now that's 99% of most men walking around on the planet because they haven't gone back, and I know this is a dirty word, but they haven't gone to therapy. They haven't talked about things that happened to them. They haven't even acknowledged and given themselves permission, whether they have societal permission or not, to say, that was fucked up. And that's probably still informing how I act, the fact that I react, and how I am in relationship. So one, we got to go back and handle the stuff that's under the surface. It's the bottom part of the iceberg, right? Then two, what do you want to do? I ask men all the time, what do you want? Like, well, my dad wants me to do this, my ex-wife wants me to do this, my kid. No, what do you want? What do you want to build with this one life that you have? That is a massive question. Yeah. And for a lot of guys, it fucks them up.
Because a lot of them have never been asked that question.
They've never been asked. Yeah. And so it's I've asked a lot of guys, how do you feel? And they'll be like, no, I didn't ask what you think. I asked how you feel. And like, you know what? No one's ever asked me this before. So again, if we come back to the question though, what do you want? And I'll say this specifically, what do you want as a man? What do you need as a man? As a human, I have certain requirements. I need food, I need shelter, I need a roof over my head, I need love. As a man, I have a different set of requirements. I need challenge. Mm-hmm. I need something to tussle with. I need somewhere to put this little inner predator that lives in my heart. I need to do jujitsu, right? I need to make money. I need to fuck a certain way. I need to have different aspects of my life that I know when those boxes are checked, my life works. Then I can say I have requirements as a writer, as a speaker, as a whatnot. But Tim, I'll tell you, most guys miss that middle chunk. They don't, because no one's ever asked them, what do you need? What's your operating system? Right. What's your guidebook? When I get out of sorts as a human, I go back and I read my own damn book because I remember writing it for myself. I'm like, oh, I need tussle. I need brotherhood. I need men to look me in the eye and go, you're full of shit right now. And we can all see it. And we love you so much, we're not going to let you stay full of your own shit. Yeah. Right? I need guys that will also high five me. Hey, you just hit a home run. Good for you. We're here to support you. Yeah. We're not intimidated by that. You're not competition. Fuck yeah. Good for you. That's what I need as a man. Yeah. So if we take those two combos, what's messing me up? What happened to me that I still need to sort through? Family issues, sexual trauma, any trauma that's come up. Okay, got to get that handled, right? It's like get yourself out of debt. Then, what do you want to build? Yeah. And what do you need? First, what do you need? Then, what do you want? We haven't given men a lot of permission. Like, what do you want? Right. What do you want out of this life, man? It's going to go like that. Yeah. We talked about it, like at the end of the day, this business, your company, isn't just, I hope we sold a bunch of t-shirts, right? It's I hope we affected people. Yeah. How do you want to serve? And also, how do you want to serve yourself? This is the dichotomy. This is the conundrum a lot of men are in. Where it's like, I can't ask for anything for myself. I'm just a service-oriented person. I'm like, cool. If you go down, the whole company goes down. Right. You go down, the whole family goes down. So you got to also take care of yourself. Yeah. You have to acknowledge that you have needs. You're a human, you got needs. You're a dude, you got needs. But a lot of guys are like, not important. Right. My needs come second. Cool. Tell me what happens when you get sick. Right. Tell me what happens at 40 when you've done so much of the stuff you don't want to do, you suddenly have an affair. You suddenly burn your life to the ground. Right? So it's that combo of what's under the surface and then you specifically designing as a man, this is what I want my life to look like. Yeah. That's the hard work, right? It's hard work, brother. It's hard work.
And I think that's something that, a lot of men don't understand the path of how to get there, right? Mm-hmm. And the other half of it is actually doing the work, right? And that's tough. Mm-hmm. That's tough because we don't want to see all the dirty laundry of our own life put in front of us and talked about in an open. Those are our those are skeletons, man. Leave those over there, right? But you can't, right? We have to be in a place to be disciplined enough with ourselves to say, hey, it's my responsibility to take care of me first, right? Because just like on an airplane, right? And the flight attendant saying, hey, if we're going down, you got to put your mask on first before you can help anybody else. Right? You got to take care of yourself first, and that's incredibly tough because society has shaped the male culture to be the hunter, the gatherer, the bearer of security, all these things, right? Yeah. And to kind of turn your side to him, like I'm going to start doing me. That's hard work, man, and it's a new muscle. So let's talk a little bit about like some of the behaviors that we can sharpen that discipline, right? Because this is a behavior based, right? We have to create new conditions for ourselves then that allows us to be successful, right? Because this work is hard,
for sure,
right? And when you're doing it and you're taking a look at yourself, you're like, hey, man, maybe I shouldn't have been drinking, but my drinking is predicated because of this behavior.
Right.
I'm going to stop doing this,
Right.
right? Most people can't do that.
Right.
But how do we get there?
First, let's talk about the big picture, which is, and this is something that's very often not said to men. If you and I have a task, say, I know that my task from going from unhealed and unconscious to healed and conscious is that I have to deadlift 1,100 pounds. I can't do that. I'm unable to do that because there are some things that are not meant to be done alone. And so this is a big call forward to men. There are some things that you are carrying, especially in the first responder community, military community. There's some things that are so big, they are too big for you to hold alone and work through alone. So I get when a lot of guys hit that first brick wall of like, I can't unpack all that shit. I don't have the skills. I don't have the wherewithal. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. That's why men need brothers. You get a room full of men together, conscious men, and say, Tim, step out in the middle here. Tell me what happened. Tell me the thing that you're carrying. Tell me the thing you don't want to tell anybody else in the world. And let me fucking hold it with you. Right? That's when everything changes. So that to me is step one. We get out of this lone wolf mindset. Yeah, you got a ton of shit you got to do on your own. Ton of shit. Ton of practices. Ton of discipline. You got to get in the gym on your own. You got to go to the AA meeting if that's the thing. You got to call the therapist. But first, if you are walking around with a load that is crushing you, I guarantee you everybody in your world can see it. So you're the guy being like, I'm fine. You ain't fine. Right. We all know it. Right. But please let us carry some of it for you and carry some of it with you. So I want that to be step one. That's finding a conscious group of men. That's finding, and I don't care if it's my men's group, any other men's group on the planet worth their salt. Go talk to other guys who look like you, smell like you, have shoulders like you. That's the key. Because when we create a container together, magic happens. Absolute magic. So I'll say that part one. Part two is an honest assessment, right? An honest assessment. How much are you drinking? How much are you looking at porn? How fucking angry are you? How sad are you that you won't even admit? Like, get real with yourself. We have seen men do so many courageous acts, especially in your community. It's like multiple courageous acts in a day. Right, my president of my company is an ex-cop. He would tell me about like his average day, and I'd be like, one of those things would fuck me up for a year. One of them. Right. And you had like 4 of them, went home, took a shower, kissed your wife, and was back at work, right. 10 hours later. So recognize, like we have to take that same courage that men put outward, that we put out into the world, and we have to turn it inward. We have to reframe vulnerability as fucking courage. I've worked with guys in your community at the highest level, guys who were elite of the elite of the elite. And they said the hardest work I've ever done in my life is face my own shit, is face my own demons, is admit I am in so much pain I don't know what to do with it. I have so much grief it's crippling me. I have so much rage that the only option I have is to suppress it so deeply so I don't end up being a school shooter or whatever else that I think I'm afraid is going to happen. So it's that honest assessment. And then how do you eat an elephant, man?
Yeah, one bite at a time.
One bite at a time. You don't have to shit lightning, guys. You don't have to wake up and be like, cool, so now I'm going to meditate for 7 hours, journal for 7 hours, go to 17 therapy appointments for the day, quit drinking, do all the things, run 20 miles. I'm like, awesome, you're going to have a hell of a day. And tomorrow, right. When you wake up exhausted, call me and we'll say, let's do one of those. Yeah. So first, though, get around people who are like you. Right? I love the veteran community because you get 4 or 5 veterans or first responders in the same room and you watch their shoulders drop. Like, oh, you're my people. Yeah. You get me. Right. I'm not one of your people.
No defenses.
Right. You speak each other's language. Again, I think there's like some weird energetic transfer. Like, oh, you've all been initiated in the same way. So you guys all feel each other. Yeah. That's the thing.
Yeah. Commonalities, right?
But then, to be like, I know guys like practices, right? Meditate. I know it can be a scary word. Start with 60 seconds. Close your eyes. Drop into your heart. Drop into your chest. Drop into your belly. What do you feel in there? Okay, I feel things that I'm not comfortable with. All right, cool. We got to address each one of those. That's the practices of getting help, of getting support, of getting professionals. When I wanted to learn jiu-jitsu, I didn't just sit there and be like, okay, I think there's this thing called an arm bar. I got to figure this out. No, I went to a fucking jiu-jitsu school and I got my ass tapped 700 times in 4 minutes. And was like, okay, I need to keep coming and talking to the professional. And then I hung out with jiu-jitsu guys who conversations at lunch, conversations after training helped me be a better jiu-jitsu guy. So some of the practices, I'm a big fan of kind of the dirty three, which is like, you got to work out. I don't care who you are. As a dude, you have a barbell in your hand, a kettlebell in your hand, life's going to be a bit easier. Number two, you got to get your ass on a mat. You got to sit. You got to close your eyes and actually be okay being in your own skin. However amount of time you want to do that, I say every day for a month, try to do 5 minutes. Number two, you got to get a pen and paper out. You got to turn this thing that's just grinding and grinding and grinding the same damn thought over and over and over. You got to write that shit down. Yeah. And then you got to close that book and put it away. Because why? You do have a job. You do have kids. You do have a partner. You do have to make money. So you have to shut some of this work off to go live your life. But we have to address it. It has to be addressed systematically and consciously. Again, most guys understand fitness. How does fitness happen? Well, I just wander into a gym and do whatever I want whenever I feel like it. Okay, best of luck to you. Or I follow a program. I have discipline. I have 30 days in a row where I do something. I check in with a coach. That's how you guys do it.
Yeah, excellent points.
Thank you.
Yeah, fascinating. I think the last part here is, you touched a little bit on these men's groups, right? And the power of them, and you have this belief: a good man, a strong man, a whole man, an uncivilized man, right? That's what these groups are really, putting these men together,
right?
Having these conversations.
Yeah.
You're talking at length of making a still mind, and understanding that. Tell us a little about like the power of the groups that you've been facilitating, and the men that are coming out of that. What are they doing now?
Right. It's a game changer, right? It's a game changer. Because to me, when I came up with the idea of uncivilized, it was I looked at the men's world, and I actually said, I don't want any part of this. I don't want to be sick, fat, nearly dead, addicted to something, uninspired, unactualized, disempowered, collapsed. So many men today have collapsed. That shit needs to stop. So when I get a guy, even if he is collapsed, first of all, to sit in a room with other men, and this could be 3 men, 4 men, 5 men, 30 men. It doesn't have to be a workshop. It's just sitting around other guys who say, we're going to break. This is my buddy Connor Beaton, who runs a group called Man Talks. This is his idea. What's the number one rule of Man Club?
Talk about Man Club.
We don't talk about Man Club.
Tell everybody.
We don't say a damn thing about being a man.
Yeah.
So first we're going to start breaking some rules, which is, okay, let's talk about what's happening. Again, let's be honest. Right? So many men have a blind spot. I have a blind spot. You have blind spots. But when you get other guys around you to go, hey man, we've seen this same pattern in you. We're going to challenge you to do differently. We're going to challenge you to feel differently. We're going to challenge you to have that conversation you said you were going to have for the last 6 months. But every 3 weeks when we meet, you're like, well, I just didn't have the opportunity. By the next fucking meeting, you're having the conversation. So what does that do to that man? It gives him accountability. Right? That is the ultimate piece for dudes. We need accountability. And it also, in my frame of it, it gives men something to live into. We don't have a model. We don't have this is what a successful, actualized, healthy male looks like. That is not all over television. The exact opposite is all over television. So we have a saying in the Uncivilized is, let others be safer for I walk among them. Now, think of what that requires. That requires you to do all of that back-end work. Figure out, where am I dangerous as a dude? What happens when I get mad? What happens when I get horny? What happens when I get sad? What happens when I get reactive? I got to figure all that shit out. Then I get to be around guys, so I say, hey man, I was out with you a couple nights ago, and I noticed when we have a couple drinks that you start to get a little bit uncomfortable around women, or you're starting to get pokey and pushy. Shit's not okay with me, all right? And these guys here, it's not okay with them either. So we're not punishing you, we're not shaming you, we're not putting you down. We're just asking you to rise to a different level. So what do I see, Tim? I see miracles, for lack of a better term. I see marriages that get completely turned around. I see guys who are drinking 4 or 5 nights a week who are like, I don't really like drinking. I just don't know what the hell else to do with myself. Cool, they've quit drinking. I see guys who have started businesses that before were in miserable situations. I've seen every turnaround and transformation you can imagine, and it isn't like a Tony Robbins workshop at each one of these meetings. Men need to be seen, heard, met, and celebrated. You get that, you give that to any guy, and 99% of his challenges go away. Right? Is he still going to have hard times? Of course. Still going to have tough things that happen to him? Absolutely. Welcome to being human. But will he day to day exist in a different body, exist in a different paradigm? Will he walk with his shoulders down, his head up, right? With his heart open? Is he going to be patient with his kids? Absolutely. Is he going to be patient with his partner? Absolutely. Why? He's been around other grounded men. He gets to source from this thing called masculinity, which society likes to shit all over and then require when things get hard. He actually gets to draw upon his inner masculine core. That means he exists in a very different paradigm. That makes sense? It's like, imagine going to a dinner party, starving. Like, you haven't eaten in 2 days. You're just going to be like, where's the fucking food? Where's the food? Where's the food? Where's the food? And like grabbing whatever you can, taking whatever you can. Now imagine having a beautiful meal before that dinner party and going and be like, I may sample some of that, but I don't need it. I'm okay. Right? I feel great, actually. I'm full. Thank you. Now, guys coming out of meetings, guys coming out of groups, guys coming out of training, guys getting skills, they're like the dude that's eaten before the dinner party. Like, hey, I'm good. My heart's open. I have access to my balls. I understand how my head works. Like, I'm here to serve. What do you guys need from me? As opposed to, I need this, give me that, let me take that. You're my competition, let me shame you. I'm not okay. Yeah. Like, that's most civilized men to me.
Yeah. Making deposits, not withdrawals.
Absolutely.
Right?
Taking. Taking. You're not entitled to that shit. We want to give.
Yeah.
You get a man who's in service, and he's not in a service from like a martyrdom collapse position, but it's like, I am so full, I have so much to give. That's a healthy dude. Yeah. That's a happy dude. Guess who's healthy and happy? All the people around him.
Exactly.
Guess who feels safe? All the people around him.
Yeah.
That's what I see day in and day out.
Yeah. I'm often, asked, in many circles and like in conversations that are being had, like, what is the definition of a man? Right? I think for me, and what it is it's simply one word. It's restraint. Right? Having the ability to restrain all of those things that I'm being hit with on a daily basis, and my reaction to them, right? And how do I want to position myself? What are your thoughts?
We bring structure and order to the chaos of the world. When we are grounded and in our power, that's what we do. That's what we do in situations. That's what we do in families. That's what we do in society. We bring structure and we bring order. That's what we're best at. We build shit, right? And we build really good things. So to me, when a guy's on point, when he's grounded, when he's centered, when he knows who he is, that's what he does better than anybody else on the planet. So to me, that's one of the main points of this, right? He penetrates the culture. He penetrates society with his unique vision. Right? Look around. This is someone's vision. I'm sitting here because someone was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm building something. And I'm building it from a place that involves here. That's why we're having a conversation. You guys just aren't selling shirts. Right? That to me is the beauty of men. He's protective. That's your community in a notion. Right? He's providing. That's your community. And again, what would men do? We protect, we provide, and then we build.
Brilliant.
That's what we do.
I love it. Well, Traver, You're an incredible human.
Thank you.
And I think the work that you're doing is fantastic.
Thank you.
For everybody out there listening, I hope that you continue these conversations at home amongst your friends in your groups. This is powerful stuff. Where can individuals go to find information if they want to learn more about your men's groups, the program itself? Where can they go?
Please go to manuncivilized.com and then /grunt style. We got a little something for you guys. And every guy, please get your hands on my book. Get your hands on Man Uncivilized. It's on Audible, it's on Amazon, it's on my own site, but that is the guidebook. And if you can, get the physical book. I made it a specific way. It's heavy, it's weighty, it's not your normal black ink on white paper. But I'm also on Instagram at Traver Boehm, TraverBoehm. But if you put anything uncivilized into Google, I come up pretty quick. And I would love to have a conversation. If people got value of this or have questions, please hit me up on Instagram. I love chatting with audiences after podcasts.
Fantastic. Well, it was a pleasure having you here today and learning more about this subject. And for everybody out there at home, touchy and uncomfortable subjects, but that's what American Grit is for, and that's the conversations that we're having here. And I look forward to the next one with you all. So until then, be kind to one another, wash those stinking hands, and all you men out there, be savage. See you later.